Hello and welcome to Newsweek South Asia, your one-stop destination for in-depth analysis of security challenges, regional conflicts, and the evolving threat of terrorism. Let's take a look at the headlines first. Bangladesh has ousted PM Hasina sentenced to death for student crackdown. India reasserts zero tolerance on terrorism, urges SEO to reform its approach. And Red Fort to Kashmir forest, spark leaders claim spark storm after deadly Delhi blast. Bangladesh has entered one of its darkest and most volatile chapters. The International Crimes Tribunal in Dhaka has sentenced deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to death for alleged crimes against humanity related to last year's student protests. Tried in absentia from exile in New Delhi, Hasina has called the verdict preordained and politically motivated. But beyond the courtroom, a far more troubling picture is emerging. The return of Islamist extremism, the weakening of state institutions, and the growing footprint of Pakistan-backed networks inside Bangladesh. As the interim government stumbles, Dhaka today stands at the crossroads of democracy and destabilization.
More specifically, Ashuliate ছজনকে হত্যা করে পুড়িয়ে দেয়া চানখারপুলে ছজনকে হত্যা করার মাধ্যমে যে অপরাধ করেছেন সেটার দায়ে তাকে দোষী সাব্যস্ত করে মৃত্যুদণ্ড প্রদান করেছেন।
Former Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, the architect of the country's economic rise and a bulwark against terrorism, was sentenced to death by the International Crimes Tribunal in Dhaka. The judges ruled that Hasina ordered lethal force on student protesters, including close-range shootings at Dhaka University. Hasina was convicted on 3 charges: incitement to violence, ordering killings, and failing to prevent atrocities. The case relied heavily on a former police chief who turned state witness after her ouster. Hasina refused to return from India, calling the proceedings illegitimate, and today Dhaka remains under lockdown, armoured vehicles, city-wide checkpoints, and half of the capital's police force deployed. Inside the packed courtroom, the ruling was delivered in stark language.
It is hereby ordered that accused Sheikh Hasina be found guilty on 3 counts under charge 1. Count number 1, incitement. Count number 2, order to kill. Count number 3, inaction to prevent the atrocities and failing to take punitive actions against the perpetrators. For all these 3 counts, we have decided to inflict her with only one sentence, that is sentence of death.
The verdict sends shockwaves across Bangladesh, but also raises serious questions about political neutrality, procedural fairness, and the motives behind the trial. The roots of this crisis lie in the violent student uprising of 2024, triggered by the High Court's reinstatement of a controversial quota system in government jobs. Clashes between anti-quota demonstrators and activists from Hasina's Awami League spiraled into a nationwide violence. A UN report estimated 1,400 deaths, though Hasina has repeatedly demanded an independent investigation disputing the numbers. The Awami League government fell on 5th August 2024, forcing Hasina to flee to India. But what followed was even more unprecedented. Within weeks of Hasina's ouster, the interim government began a systematic campaign to erase the political legacy of the Awami League, the party that delivered Bangladesh's liberation in 1971. Hasina's father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's statue was pulled down. His historic residence turned museum was burned. The Awami League was banned. Minorities aligned with the party were subjected to targeted violence. And into this vacuum stepped Bangladesh's Islamist hardliners, Hifazat-e-Islam, Jamaat-e-Islami, and smaller extremist-linked networks. Groups that had been heavily suppressed under Hasina's 17 years in power are once again asserting themselves. Regional analysts warn that Bangladesh today resembles the pre-2000s environment when extremist movements thrived under state indifference.
I think the verdict is part of the political vendetta that has been organized and has been going on against Sheikh Hasina and the Awami League. So it is a continuation of that process. As you know, the judiciary has been weaponized there with former judges, and many judges have been removed, and the interim government has put in their own people there. So nobody is surprised by this verdict. And I think it means that now the Awami League has to decide whether they will carry on the struggle or they keep quiet, which I doubt very much. I think the struggle will go on.
This is a dramatic warning, but one that matches the pattern emerging on the ground. Pakistan-backed networks that were once dismantled by Hasina are resurfacing with alarming speed. Even Indian intelligence sources have flagged a Bangladesh linkage in the recent Delhi terror blast, a development unthinkable under Hasina's counter-terror regime.
There is a very strong belief that Hasina, the agitation conducted against Hasina, was also had a foreign hand in it, or in different ways, and because a decision was taken somewhere that she's not cooperating in with that country, which wanted certain facilities there in Bangladesh, etc. You know, these are all in the media already, and these have been discussed, and so these things are also there. And we have seen the interim government moving very close to Pakistan, and there's a lot of ISI, traveling, Pakistani generals and others traveling to Dhaka. During the bomb blasts in Delhi, for example, I just read somewhere that they have also unearthed a Dhaka connection. Now that could very much be the LET, which has gone there and started operating from there, or the Jaish or whoever. Because this is what Pakistan would aim for.
As the interim administration led by Muhammad Yunus governs with little electoral legitimacy, ordinary Bangladeshis say the country has plunged into instability.
Last 17 years, when Sheikh Hasina was the Prime Minister, the country has been improved by the developed by the economy, structure, all those. शेख हसीना की टाइम में जो हुआ था, जो बांग्लादेश अभी पीपल बोल रहे हैं आगे भालो छिलाम. It's been our previous time was more better. We have been fooded, we have been eat, we have been sleeping. There is a democracy, peaceful life. So अभी जो यूनुस की गवर्नमेंट की जो टाइम जा रहा है, ये इतना लोग अभी इतना सफर कर रहा है कि यूनुस की ये शोषण बना रहा है. बांग्लादेश में एक शोषण हो रहा है, एक डेजर्ट, एक मरुभूमि चल रहा है. बांग्लादेश की लोग अभी रो रहा है शेख हसीना के लिए कि एक जिंदगी कैसे था, अभी क्या बुरी जिंदगी हो गया. ये इंटरनेशनली भी इतना फोकसिंग हो जाएगा कि यूनुस की नोबेल भी जाने वाला. यूनुस की जो नोबेल मिला है, जो खरीद कर वो भी जाने वाला. यूनुस की हालत इन फ्यूचर में सबसे बुरी हालत होगा इन फ्यूचर में बांग्लादेश में.
From rising food prices to collapsing law and order, Bangladesh today is struggling with a governance crisis that many blame directly on the interim administration. With elections due in early 2026, Bangladesh stands at a dangerous crossroads. The death sentence risks igniting massive street unrest. Islamist groups are regaining political space. Pakistan-linked networks are rebuilding quietly. Minorities fear renewed communal violence. State institutions, police, judiciary, administration appear deeply politicized. Security analysts warn that if this political vacuum persists, Bangladesh risks being overtaken by extremist actors, reversing much of the stability and progress built up over the past 2 decades. At a crucial moment for Eurasian security, India has delivered its strongest message yet against cross-border terrorism. Speaking at the SCO Council of Heads of Government in Moscow, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar declared that New Delhi will continue to defend its citizens against terror with full resolve. His remarks come just months after Operation Sindoor, India's direct military response to the Pahalgam terror attack, an operation that reshaped the region's counter-terrorism calculus.
At the SCO meeting, Jaishankar reminded member states of the organization's very foundation, the fight against terrorism, separatism and extremism. But he also underlined a blunt reality. These threats have only grown more complex and dangerous. The ministers stated clearly that there can be no justification, no dilution and no whitewash of terrorism, an unmistakable reference to Pakistan's attempts to politicize terror and deflect global scrutiny. For India, this is not just diplomacy, it is a matter of national security made more urgent after Pakistan-backed groups carried out the April 22 Pahalgam attack that claimed 26 Indian lives.
We must never forget that the SCO was founded to combat the three evils of terrorism, separatism, and extremism. These threats have become even more serious in the years that have passed. It is imperative that the world display zero tolerance towards terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. There can be no justification, no looking away, and no whitewashing. As India has demonstrated, we have the right to defend our people against terrorism and will exercise it. In conclusion, India believes that SCO must adapt to the changing global landscape, develop an expanded agenda, and reform its working methods. We will contribute positively and fully to these objectives.
India's position today is backed by action. In May, New Delhi launched Operation Sindoor, one of its most significant cross-border counter-terror missions in recent years. Beginning on May 7, India used fighter jets, precision missiles, armed drones and sustained artillery fire to strike terror camps and military installations across Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. The message was unmistakable. India will not absorb attacks, it will respond and respond decisively. The ceasefire on May 10 ended the exchange, but the strategic consequences continue. For the first time in years, Pakistan's terror infrastructure faced direct, targeted retaliation with international visibility, challenging Islamabad's long-standing belief that it could hide behind nuclear brinkmanship and diplomatic ambiguity. Experts say India's concerns are neither new or isolated. Terror networks cultivated in Pakistan and strengthened during decades of instability in Afghanistan continue to threaten the region.
Absolutely. I think he was right in his stating the Indian position and concern about the revival of terrorism in South Asia, especially after the Afghanistan and the American occupation of Afghanistan, and even during the Al-Qaeda activity in Afghanistan, and where Pakistan was used as the hub center for all the extremist group. However, now after the Americans have left the area and now Taliban is on rule in Afghanistan, and Pakistan also facing lots of difficulties and also handling all these extremist group, I think India's concern have been stated many times. And in fact, India was one of the main countries, or the first country in the world, who have submitted the comprehensive fight against terrorism draft to the UN, but unfortunately it have never been admitted or accepted by the international communities. And so therefore there should be zero tolerance, irrespective what you may call it, but for any kind of any form of terrorism.
Tensions inside the SCO remain high. Earlier this year, India refused to sign the SCO Defence Ministers' joint communique, not because of economic disagreements, but because the document deliberately ignored the Pahalgam terror attack while mentioning Balochistan and the hijacking of the Jafar Express. For India, this selective condemnation is unacceptable. New Delhi has consistently pushed the SCO to recognize Pakistan-backed terrorism as the region's primary destabilizing force, a demand that some members have hesitated to support due to political alignments. But India is now setting the tone. Any regional platform that ignores terrorism cannot claim credibility. Jaishankar's visit to Moscow comes at a time when India faces renewed US pressure to reduce purchases of Russian oil and defense hardware. But India remains firm. New Delhi continues to maintain a balanced strategic posture, emphasizing autonomy in defense partnerships and energy security. With President Putin expected in India in December, both sides are finalizing new bilateral agreements. This signals that despite geopolitical pressures, the India-Russia axis remains stable, especially in counterterrorism and strategic cooperation. Jaishankar also called for stronger SCO institutions to tackle organized crime, drug trafficking and cyber threats, areas often exploited by terror groups operating from Pakistan. With terrorism once again reshaping global security priorities, India's message for Moscow is loud and unequivocal. Regional peace cannot be built on selective blindness. It must start with confronting the sources of terror head-on.
A political bombshell from Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir has ignited a new storm around the Delhi Red Fort blast. Just days after the November 10 attack killed 13 people, former POJK Prime Minister Chaudhry Anwarul Haq publicly hinted that Pakistan had hit India from the Red Fort to the forests of Kashmir. This claim comes at a time when Pakistan's own ministers are issuing open threats of all-out war against India, exposing once again the dangerous nexus between extremist rhetoric, state patronage and terror operations that spill across borders. This week, Newsweek South Asia pieces together how our politicians boast a terror outfit's footprint and Islamabad's escalating war rhetoric fit into a much larger pattern of Pakistan's cross-border terror playbook.
A video now viral across Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Pakistan has sent shockwaves through South Asia. Chaudhry Anwarul Haq. Until 2 days ago, the so-called Prime Minister of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir declared on the assembly floor that Pakistan had hit India from the Red Fort to the forests of Kashmir. Haq claimed, "If you keep bleeding Balochistan, we will hit you. By the grace of Allah, we have done it."
कि अगर नहीं बाज आओगे बलोचिस्तान को ब्लीड करने से तो लाल किले से लेकर कश्मीर के जंगलों तक तुम्हें घुस के मारेंगे.
His statement stops just short of explicitly naming the Red Fort blast, but the timing has raised serious questions. This comes even as Islamabad routinely accuses New Delhi of fueling unrest in Balochistan, a charge India dismisses as Pakistan's old strategy to mask its own terrorism export machinery.
I think this has been quite clear to us that Pakistan is involved. Pakistan's hand is very visible. We have been able to find out that the Jaish were the handlers, Jaish-e-Mohammed was the handler. They were the ones who were radicalizing, they were the ones who were providing all the assistance, all the support as far as these bombers are concerned, from Al-Falah University are concerned. They are the ones who had brainwashed them. So this was very, very clear. But the fact that he has come out and he has said so very categorically that Pakistan had a hand, and there are these terrorist groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, who have been set up by the ISI and by the Pakistan Army, that is further corroborative proof and evidence that Pakistan has a hand in it. So whenever Pakistan tries to show deniability, that means obviously that their own people are also acknowledging and accepting that Pakistan is involved in fomenting terrorism and carrying out these terrorist activities in India.
Meanwhile, the ongoing investigation into the Red Fort car bomb, a Hyundai i20 packed with ammonium nitrate fuel oil, reveals chilling details. Officials confirm the plot was engineered by a 10-member terror cell directly linked to Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Pakistan-based group founded by UN-designated terrorist Masood Azhar. The cell was created by Maulvi Irfan Ahmed, an Islamic cleric from Shopia with direct Jaish-e-Mohammed connections. He recruited and indoctrinated doctors from Haryana's Al Falah Medical College, including the suicide bomber Dr. Umar Mohammed. The rest of the cell has been arrested. Investigators also uncovered financial trails pointing to Pakistan-based handlers. Sources say Jaish leaders pushed fundraising through digital channels, including Pakistan's SadaPay app, and may be preparing a women-led attack. One key suspect, Dr. Shahina Saeed, codenamed Madam Surgeon, is reportedly part of Jaish-e-Mohammed's women wing, Jamaat-ul-Muminat, headed by Masood Azhar's sister Sadia. The unit has reportedly become more active following India's Operation Sindoor, which wiped out Jaish-e-Mohammed camps in Bahawalpur earlier this year. Fresh intelligence accessed this week suggests a coordinated escalation by Pakistan-backed outfits across Jammu and Kashmir. Both Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba are said to be mobilizing for a new wave of attacks, each using different indoctrination pipelines, operational tactics, and recruitment channels. The Red Fort blast, investigators believe, is part of this broader pattern, a shift towards educated and radical recruits. The so-called white-collar terror modules, aimed at deepening insecurity in India's urban centers.
Yeah, I think earlier it used to be in Kashmir, they had people there, they had sleeper cells there, but now they are with the newer technology that has become available. They have found this method of being able to brainwash these people through social media, through internet, and so this seems to be the new strategy that has been employed, that has been made by Pakistan. So India will have to find a response to it. India will have, as far as our own intelligence agencies are concerned, we will have to become much more vigilant. We will have to become much smarter in terms of looking at the social media exchanges of these people and trying to see how we can find them before they are able to do any harm or any damage to the country and to the society.
Huq's remarks are not an isolated outburst. Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif has warned that Islamabad cannot rule out of the possibility of all-out war with India, declaring the country on maximum alert. He accused India of being untrustworthy and even suggested New Delhi could trigger a conflict directly or via Afghanistan. Rhetoric, analysts say, reflects Pakistan's internal desperation and its reliance on anti-India narratives to mask economic collapse and political disarray. For India, the latest confession-style rhetoric from POJK leaders, combined with ongoing threats from Pakistan's top ministers, only strengthens the case that Islamabad's deep state continues to blur the lines between statecraft and terror strategy. As investigations into the Red Fort blast uncover more evidence of Pakistan-based radicalization, recruitment, and funding pipelines, New Delhi faces a terror landscape that is not evolving, but increasingly emboldened by political actors across the border.
Balochistan, Pakistan's largest yet most neglected province, remains a region scarred by enforced disappearances, military crackdowns, and decades of resource exploitation. As Islamabad celebrates its first shipment of critical minerals to the United States, Baloch voices continue to warn that province's people remain excluded, unheard, and under siege. In this week's episode of Newsweek South Asia, we speak to Baloch leader Mehran Murray to understand the ground reality, the human rights crisis, and what these new geopolitical and economic shifts mean for the Baloch struggle. Hello, sir. Welcome to the show. So my first question is, there are repeated cases of enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, and arbitrary detentions in Balochistan. How would you assess the current human rights situation in the province?
The current situation is very grim, as it has been in the recent past. I think genocide is at full escalation. Ethnic cleansing has been order of the day. Crimes against humanity are committed in Balochistan by the NAPAK army and its intelligence agencies on a daily basis. I mean, now it's a new trend of transnational aggression as well. As you can see, they have no respect for any boundaries or borders. In India, they commit atrocities. In Afghanistan, they're committing atrocities, and they're targeting Baloch refugees in Afghanistan now. I call it transnational aggression, and that's what it is.
Military operations are often justified as measures to counter insurgency, yet many believe they have also curtailed political space and civil rights. How do you view the way these operations are being conducted on the ground?
Actual reality on the ground is the Baloch people are struggling and striving for the restoration of their sovereignty, territorial integrity, and their basic human dignity and human rights. If Pakistan or NAPAK establishment of the army can label it something else and maneuver their narrative in a way that it simplifies our struggle, then we are not responsible for that, and think the world should not really heed any notice to Pakistani claims.
Pakistan has sent its first ever shipment of rare earth and critical minerals to the US. But given the history of exploitation and neglect of Balochistan's natural resources, do you believe this new deal will benefit the local population in any way?
Absolutely not. Since the occupation of Balochistan, the exploitation of resources is first and foremost priority of the NAPAK army and the establishment. They don't, I mean, of course, they need the landmass of Balochistan, they need the ports and everything else, but the looting of resources is their primary objective.
While Islamabad profits from Balochistan's rich mineral resources, the province remained one of the poorest. How do you view this contrast in the context of human rights and economic justice?
Now, Pakistan has thrived and flourished over the 70, 80 years of its existence because of the occupation of Balochistan, Kashmir, Sindh, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and at many times because of their meddling in Afghanistan. So it is a rogue cancer in the region which profits from other people's miseries, and it steals. It's a blatant usurper and thief of the region. They will try their utmost to maintain this occupation at any cost, because they do realize once we became independent and we regain our sovereignty, nobody will even look at Pakistan.
Over the years, many Baloch activists, students, and journalists have fled Pakistan seeking asylum abroad. What does this trend suggest about the prevailing environment in the province?
There is no, lawful struggle in Balochistan for the rights of the Baloch people. Not the whole 40, 50 million people can run away from the country. We live in an open air prison. We live in a garrison under curfew. We live in dire situations at the hands of the NAPAK army. People leave the country not primarily only to save their skin, but many people, as you realize, activists leave the country in order to highlight the situation in Balochistan, the grim conditions where the Baloch people live in.
Thank you so much for giving us your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views, and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.